The Vesh's hope had stopped hopping 80 cycles ago. Chief Engineer Tivak ran his claws across the console's dead surface, feeling nothing but cold alloy wear. Warmth should have pulsed. The ship's reactor had failed on cycle 43 of their survey mission, a containment breach that killed half the crew before the emergency seals engaged. What remained was a tomb with life support. Any change? Tivak turned. Navigator Esser stood in the doorway, her scales dull with exhaustion. 3 meal cycles without proper nutrition. The protein synthesizers had been the first system sacrificed to keep air moving through the corridors. Nothing, Tivak said. The Council's network shows our signal. They've marked it received every cycle for 93 rotations. Marked and ignored. He didn't correct her. The Galactic Council maintained a simple hierarchy of response. Emergencies near trade routes got attention. Strategic assets warranted protection. A survey vessel carrying mineral samples and biological specimens replaceable. The Vesh's hope carried nothing valuable enough to justify a rescue, except 14 living beings, but the Council had stopped counting live centuries ago. Essers moved to the observation port. Stars stretch across the view, cold, distant, indifferent, somewhere out. Their ships passed, freighters, Council patrol vessels, species with working reactors and full bellies. Maybe they can't hear us, she said. They hear us. She knew every Rigelian knew. The Council heard everything. They simply chose which sounds deserved a response. Tivak remembered his training. Emergency protocols stated a vessel in distress could expect rescue within 20 cycles. After 40, hope became statistical improbability. After 60, the Council classified the crew as presumed lost and closed the file. They were past 90. The Council had already written their obituaries. The water recyclers are failing, S-Rays said. Engineering assessment gives us 12 more cycles before the system collapses. 12 cycles. Tivak did the math without thinking. 16 crew members remained. When the water failed, they would have 3 cycles before dehydration became fatal. Then the air would follow. Then the cold. Have you told the captain? Someone has to. Captain V. Karn had retreated to her quarters on cycle 62. She emerged twice. A cycle to confirm the distress beacon still broadcast, then returned to silent. Some commanders broke faster than others. V. Karn had broken slowly, piece by piece, until nothing remained but duty and despair. Tivak looked at the network display. Again, their signal pulsed outward. Digital scream across light years. Council's automated systems received it, logged it, and buried it under higher priority traffic. He had stopped being angry 20 cycles ago. Anger required energy. Now he felt only a hollow acceptance, like watching a slow death and recognizing its inevitability. Chief S-Ray's voice changed, sharp, alert. Something's happening. The console flickered. Tivak's claws dug into the armrest. The display showed an anomaly, a sensor ghost appearing at the edge of their detection range. Not Council technology, not any configuration he recognized. What is that? The ghost became a shape. The shape became a vessel. It dropped from faster than light travel without the usual radiation signature, without the Council standard transponder codes, without any warning at all. One moment, empty space. The next, a ship. T-Vex's heart hammered against his ribs. Pirates used silent emergence, raiders. Looking for easy prey, a dead ship made. A perfect target. Battle stations, he said, tell the captain. The new vessel transmitted a simple message, no encryption, no counsel. Protocols. Just raw audio across an open channel. Attention, unidentified vessel, this is the Earth vessel. Last response, we received your distress call. Do you require assistance? T-Vex stared at the words. 93 cycles of silence. Then someone answered. But not someone he knew. Earth humans. The Council's newest members, a species too primitive for most diplomatic circles, too aggressive for comfort, too unpredictable for trust. And they had come anyway. Essers grabbed his arm. What do we tell them? T-Vex opened his mouth. No sound came out. The humans waited. The last response hung in space like a question. T-Vex examined every scan the ship's failing sensors could produce. The human vessel made no sense. Its hull configuration followed no counsel standard. Its power signature read as inefficient, almost wasteful. The reactor output suggested technology 2 generations behind current galactic norms. Yet it had crossed light years to find them. Open a channel, he said. The communication system sputtered. S-Res. Worked the controls until static resolved into a visual feed. A face appeared on the display, not Ridgerin. Not any species T-Vac knew. Flat features, short fur on the crown of the skull, eyes that held focus like a predator tracking movement. Human. Chief Engineer T-Vac of the Ridgerin. Survey vessel Vesh's Hope, he said. Identify your purpose. The human female, he guessed based on vocal patterns, inclined her head. Captain Elena Vasquez, Earth vessel. Last response. We picked up your distress signal 72 standard cycles ago. 72. T-Vac's mind snagged on the number. Their signal had been broadcasting for 93. The humans had heard it 3 weeks after it started. You heard us, he said. No one else did. We heard. Vasquez's expression didn't change. We came as fast as we could. Behind her, T-Vac saw movement. Other humans working consoles, checking displays, moving with an efficiency that bordered on aggressive. Their ship might be primitive, but their crew operated like a weapon being aimed. S-Res leaned close. Their weapon systems, they're armed. T-Vac had noticed. The last response carried more firepower than a survey vessel needed, more than a rescue ship should carry. Pirates, he thought again. Raiders wearing a friendly face. You travel with considerable ordnance. For a rescue mission, he said. Vasquez didn't blink. Space is dangerous. We prefer to arrive alive. A human answer, direct, unapologetic. T-Vac found himself respecting the honesty even as suspicion coiled in his gut. What do you want? To help, Vasquez gestured to someone off screen. A data stream appeared on T-Vac's console. Schematics, approach vectors, a rescue plan. Your reactor is dead. Your life support is failing. We can evacuate your crew to our vessel and transport you to the nearest council station. Your vessel. T-Vac scanned the data. Your vessel has half our displacement. You cannot accommodate 16 additional beings. We'll manage. Manage how? Vasquez's eyes met his through the display. We've carried worse loads in Worse conditions. Trust me, Chief. Engineer will manage. Trust, the word felt foreign. Council had taught every species that trust was a commodity traded like currency. Humans were new. Their currency was unproven. We need time to discuss this, TVAC said. You have 10 standard cycles before your water recyclers fail. Vasquez's voice carried no judgment, just fact. We'll wait. The channel closed. TVAC turned to Essers. What do you make of them? She stared at the frozen image of the human captain. They arrived 2 weeks ago. What? 72 cycles ago, she said. That's 2 weeks. Essers pulled up navigation data. The nearest human claimed system is 40 cycles from our position at their vessel's maximum speed. They couldn't have reached us in 72 cycles unless they were already nearby. TVAC's blood chilled. They were searching for us. They were searching for something. Essers's claws tapped the console. The question is what? The humans waited, silent, patient. Their ship drifted at the edge of weapon range, close enough to help, far enough to strike. TVAC made a decision. Open the channel. Again. Essers complied. Vasquez appeared. Immediately, waiting, watching. We accept your assistance, TVAC said. But I want to know something first. Ask. Why? He leaned toward the display. Why did you come? You're not council. You have no obligation, no treaty requires this. Why risk your crew for strangers? Vasquez was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried something TVAC couldn't name. Not pity, not heroism. Something older. Because no one answered our distress calls once, she said. We remember what that felt like. She closed the channel, and the last response began to move. The docking maneuver should have been impossible. TVAC watched from the emergency airlock as the human ship extended a connector arm toward the Vesh's Hope. Their vessels had incompatible docking systems, different sizes, different pressure seals, different everything. The humans solved the problem by cutting through their own hull. Confirm approach vector, a human voice said over the open channel. Not Vasquez. A male voice, younger, carrying an edge of excitement TVAC found disturbing. Vector confirmed. Another human answered. Contact in 90 seconds. Essers gripped TVAC's arm. There, welding an adapter to their exterior while moving. He saw it now. Figures in pressure suits working on the human ship's hull, attaching a makeshift docking collar designed specifically for Ridge Aaron. Specifications. They had prepared this. They had studied the Vesh's Hope and built custom equipment before ever making contact. We have company, a human said. Movement on their hull looks like a Ridge Aaron in a suit. TVAC's comm crackled. Chief Engineer, please confirm you are at the emergency airlock. I am here, he said. Your crew is on your hull in vacuum. We're fine, just stay clear of the connection point. The humans moved with shocking speed. They worked in open space without tethers, passing tools hand to hand, positioning the adapter with precision that bordered on reckless. One of them slipped. TVAC watched the figure tumble away from the ship, spinning into blackness. No one screamed, no one panicked. Another human grabbed a cable and launched after the drifting crew member, catching them in a maneuver that looked choreographed. Both returned to the hull within seconds. Everyone okay? Vasquez's voice. Minor issue, we're fine. Stay focused. TVAC realized his mouth was open. He closed it. The docking adapter locked into place. Air cycled through the connection. Warning lights on TVAC's panel turned from red to green. Connection secure, the human voice announced, atmosphere stable. You can open your hatch, chief engineer. TVAC worked the manual release. The airlock door groaned but opened. Beyond it, he saw a short passageway leading to the human ship's interior, a space that smelled of metal and recycled oxygen and something else, something that reminded him of effort. A human stood at the far end of the passage, not Vasquez, a male with dark skin and close-cropped hair. He wore a simple gray uniform with no insignia, no rank, no protection against vacuum. Welcome aboard, he said. I'm Mateo. I'll get your people situated. TVAC stepped into the passage. The human didn't move, didn't flinch, just waited with a patience that felt rehearsed. How many can you take? TVAC asked. All of you. Your ship is too small. We expanded the cargo bay, removed some non-essential systems. Mateo shrugged. We don't need luxuries. The crew transferred in stages. The humans worked without breaks, guiding weekend ridge errands through the passage, checking vital signs, distributing water and nutrition packets. TVAC watched his crew eat for the first time in days, watched them drink, watched them cry with relief. And he watched the humans. They gave up their own quarters, they shared their food, they worked through exhaustion, rotating shifts so no one burned out. When a ridge errand collapsed from stress, a human carried them to medical. When another broke down sobbing, a human sat with them until the tears stopped. What are you? Esrath whispered to TVAC as they stood in the crowded cargo bay. He had no answer. Vasquez found him an hour later. She moved through the bay like she owned it, which TVAC realized she did. This was her ship, her people, her rules. Everyone's aboard, she said. We're ready to depart. TVAC looked around. The cargo bay held 16 ridge errands, minimal supplies, and a patchwork of human engineering that kept them alive. He looked at Vasquez. You've been here for 2 weeks, he said. She didn't deny it. We arrived, assessed the situation, planned the rescue. Her voice was calm. We needed to make sure we could save everyone before we made contact. If you had failed, we wouldn't have failed. TVAC believed her, and that terrified him more than anything. The last response burned toward the nearest council station at speed. TVAC's engineering mind classified as unsafe. He stood in the human vessel's bridge, cramped space filled with jury-rigged displays and redundant systems that screamed of constant maintenance. The crew moved around him like blood cells in a living organism, each person knowing exactly where to be and what to do. 6 hours to station, a human announced. Council traffic control is demanding identification and purpose. Vask didn't look up from her console. Transmit our logs, full access. Let them see everything. They'll want to talk to you directly. Then they can wait. TVAC stepped closer. You don't fear the council. Should I? Vask finally turned to face him. We responded to a distress call. We saved lives. If they have a problem with that, they can explain it to the media networks. The casual defiance left TVAC speechless. No species spoke of the council that way. The council was power. The council was law. The council decided who lived and who died. Humans apparently hadn't received that message. Your logs, Tvac said, they'll show everything, your approach, your waiting. Period, your. Our methods, Vask nodded. Yes. They'll see exactly what we did and why. Won't that make you vulnerable? Other species will learn how you operate. Good, she turned back to her console. Maybe they'll learn something. The bridge fell into focused silence. Tvac watched displays showing their approach to the council station, a massive structure housing diplomatic corps from 1,000 worlds, the seat of galactic power. And he was arriving on a human ship. Esresh appeared beside him. The council is demanding we separate from the humans. They want to transport us via their own shuttles. Why? Containment. They don't want humans interacting directly with council personnel. Protocol. Tvac looked across the bridge at Vasquez. She had heard her expression remained neutral, but he saw her jaw tighten. What will you do? He asked. I'll follow council regulations. Vasquez's voice carried weight. For now, the docking process took longer than necessary. Council officials insisted on inspections, clearances, multiple verification steps. Tvac watched the humans endure each delay with a patience that felt dangerous, like pressure building behind a dam. When they finally docked, Council Representative Vel of the Throne World stood waiting in the airlock. Chief Engineer Tvac, Vel's voice dripped with rehearsed concern. We received your distress call. Arrangements were being made for your rescue. When arrangements, Tvac cut him off. 93 cycles, my people nearly died. Emergency response requires coordination, multiple species, multiple jurisdictions. Humanity managed. Vel's expression hardened. He looked past Tvac to where Vasquez stood in the passage, watching without speaking. Captain Vasquez, your actions violated protocol. Responding to distress calls outside human territory requires council authorization. Their signal was broadcasting on open channels. Anyone could hear it. Anyone could, only you acted without permission. Vasquez stepped forward. Tvac saw the human crew behind her, Mateo and the others positioning themselves where they could see. Every council security officer. Representative Vel, Vasquez said, I've transmitted our full logs. You'll see we arrived 2 weeks before making contact. We assessed, we planned, we ensured we could save everyone before we risked their lives with an untested rescue. Vel's face shifted, confusion then. Something Tvac didn't expect, fear. You studied them for 2 weeks. We studied the situation, the ship, the failure points. You watched them die. We watched them survive. Vasquez's voice dropped, and we made sure they kept surviving. The airlock fell silent. Council security officers glanced at each other. Vel's entourage shifted uneasily. You broke protocol, Vel repeated, but the words lacked conviction. No, Vasquez smiled. We broke nothing. We just didn't wait for permission. She turned and walked back onto her ship. The human crew followed. Tvac watched them go and realized the council had lost something today. Not a battle, not a political victory. Just the excuse of waiting. Because now every species knew what humans did when faced with suffering. They moved. And the galaxy would never forget. The emergency session convened within the hour. Tvac sat in the observation gallery, watching the council chamber fill with Representatives from 100 worlds. The room dwarfed anything on the Veshes. Hope, tiered seating, holographic. Displays an atmosphere of carefully constructed authority. Essers sat beside him. They're afraid. Of humans. Of what humans represent. The representative Vel took the central podium, his throne world robes caught. The light deep purple, edged with gold. Symbols of authority that had stood for millennia. This session addresses unauthorized intervention by Earth vessel last. Response within sovereign territory of the Ridgeran people, Vel announced. Captain Alina Vasquez has been summoned to explain her actions. The chamber doors opened. Vasquez walked in alone. No uniform, no weapon, just a human, simple gray clothing walking through rows of alien representatives who had condemned species to extinction with a vote. T-Vac held his breath. Vasquez stopped before the podium. She looked up at Vel, the representative, stood on an elevated platform looking down at her and waited. You are charged with violating council protocols, Vel said, responding to distress signals without authorization, operating outside human territorial space, endangering diplomatic relations. Through endangering relation, Vasquez's voice cut through his words by saving lives. The chamber stirred, whispers ran through the tiers. You could have waited for proper authorization, Vel said. Authorization from whom? The Ridge. Earthers couldn't authorize anything. Their ship was dead, their crew was dying. Vasquez turned, addressing the entire chamber. Every species here has a distress protocol. Every species here requires endless approvals before moving to help, and while you deliberate, people die. A representative from the Hissith collective rose. The council exists to prevent chaos. Unauthorized interventions could spark conflicts. Could Vasquez faced her, but 16 Ridge Earthers would be dead if we had followed your rules. Is that acceptable? Is that the price of order? The chamber erupted. Multiple representatives spoke at once. Translators struggling to keep pace. Vel pounded the podium for silence. Captain Vasquez, you will show respect for this body. I will show respect for the lives we saved. She pulled a data slate from her pocket. I've transmitted our ship's logs, every decision, every delay, every moment we spent ensuring we could help without making things worse. Vel's assistant whispered in his ear. The representative's expression shifted. Your logs show you waited 2 weeks before making contact. We waited to prepare. You listened to their distress calls for 2 weeks. You heard them suffering. We heard them surviving. Vasquez's voice hardened, and we used that time to design a rescue that would actually work, not just a gesture that would fail. Vel fell silent. The chamber fell silent. Every eye in the room watched. The human standing alone before galactic power. You could have saved them sooner, Vel said quietly. No, Vasquez shook her head. We could have tried sooner. There's a difference. She walked toward the exit. At the door, she stopped and turned. You want to know why humans responded when no one else did? Watch the logs. Watch our approach. Watch us wait and plan and prepare. Her eyes swept across the representatives. Then ask yourselves why you didn't do the same. She left. The chamber stayed quiet. T-Vac looked at Essers. She's right. About what? Everything. Representative Val called for a recess. The session would continue after review. Of the human logs, TVAC watched. Representatives file out their expressions troubled, their whispers. Urgent. Something had changed. The council had spent centuries building a system that prioritized stability over action, order over compassion, process over people. Humans had just demonstrated a different way. Not better technology, not superior weapons, just a simple refusal to let suffering go unanswered. TVAC found Vasquez in a corridor. Outside the chamber, she leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching representatives pass. You made enemies today, he said. I made them think. She pushed off the wall. That's more dangerous. Will your council punish you? Earth's council, she almost smiled. They sent us, they knew what we were doing. Then why the performance? Why the logs? Why any of this? Vasquez looked at him. In her eyes, TVAC saw something he couldn't name. Not pride, not defiance, something heavier. Because now they can't pretend they didn't know, she said. Every species in this chamber has seen what we did. They've seen the cost of waiting. They've seen what happens when someone just moves. She walked away. TVAC stood in the corridor, surrounded by alien representatives, and understood why the galaxy feared humanity. Not because they were cruel, because they were kind. And kindness, once witnessed, becomes impossible to ignore. The council reconvened at the 20th hour. TVAC sat in the same gallery seat, but everything felt different. Representatives moved differently, spoke differently. The chamber's authority had cracked, and through the fracture, something new was forcing its way. Representative Vel looked exhausted. His robe still gleamed, but the man inside them had diminished. The logs from the human vessel have been reviewed, he announced. Captain Vasquez's account is accurate. Her crew waited 2 weeks before making contact. They studied the Vash's hope. They prepared. They ensured he paused, jaw working. They ensured the rescue would succeed before they risked failure. A representative from the Verdun assembly rose. The humans demonstrated unacceptable patience to listen to suffering for 2 weeks without action. Without visible action, another representative corrected. Their logs show constant activity during that period. They simply chose not to announce themselves until they had a solution. Semantics. Results. The chamber dissolved into debate. TVAC's watch faces twist with frustration, confusion, a growing discomfort that bordered on fear. Asraz leaned close. They don't know what to do with this. Because humans didn't do anything wrong. Worse, they did something right. The debate continued for an hour, 2 hours. Representatives argued. Jurisdiction, protocol, the dangerous precedent of unauthorized intervention. But beneath every argument, TVAC heard the same unspoken question. If humans could save strangers, why couldn't the council? Vel finally called for order. The Rydran survivors are present. Chief Engineer TVAC has requested to address this body. TVAC stood, walked down to the chamber floor. Every eye followed him. Representatives, his voice echoed in the sudden silence. I was on the Vesh's hope for 93 cycles. I watched my crew die. I watched hope become a luxury we couldn't afford, and I watched the council's network mark our distress call as received every single day. He turned, facing Vel directly. The humans didn't save us because they were obligated. They saved us because they couldn't ignore us And I want to know why that answer was so hard for this body to find. Vel's expression tightened. The Council operates within constraints. Constraints humans don't have. Constraints humans should respect. Why T-Vac spread his arms? Because your constraints nearly killed us. Because your protocols prioritized order over lives. Because your system worked exactly as designed, and the design left us to die. No one answered. Vasquez entered the chamber she stood at, the back arms crossed, watching. The representatives noticed. Whispers spread. Vel pointed at her. You orchestrated this. You wanted to humiliate this body. I wanted to show you something. Vasquez walked forward, stopping beside T-Vac. Earth's history is full of disasters where we waited for help that never came. Hurricanes, earthquakes, pandemics. We learned the hard way that no one is coming. So you became the ones who come, Vel said. Yes. And you expect us to applaud. I expect you to remember, Vasquez. Face the representatives when your people are dying, when your ships are failing, when every protocol says wait. Remember that someone out there might not wait. Remember that waiting isn't the same as helping. She turned to leave, then paused. The last response is already en route to another distress call, a Viridian transport lost near the outer rim. We heard their signal on our way here. The Viridian representative shot to his feed. That signal is encrypted, Council. Only channels. Is it? Vasquez tilted her head. Maybe. Your encryption needs work. She walked out. The chamber exploded. Accusations, demands, threats, but T-Vac saw something beneath the chaos. Relief. Because the humans were going to save the Viridian transport, and every representative in that room knew someone who might need saving someday. Vel called for a vote, a new protocol. The emergency response mandate inspired by human action, shaped by Council oversight, designed to ensure that no distress call would ever go unanswered again. It passed unanimously. T-Vac found Vasquez in the docking bay. Her crew was already boarding the last response, preparing for departure. You changed everything, he said. We showed them a different way. Vasquez secured her helmet. They changed themselves. What happens now? She looked at him, this human who had crossed light years to save strangers, who had waited and planned and risked everything for no reward. Now we go find the next silence, she said. The next call. No one answered. And the Council will watch and learn, or not, she shrugged. Either way, we'll keep moving. T-Vac extended his hand, a human gesture. He'd learned from the logs. Vasquez took it. Thank you, he said. Don't thank us. Her grip was firm. Just remember what we did, and someday, when you see someone suffering, do the same. She boarded her ship. The last response cast off from the station turned toward the darkness and vanished into faster than light. T-Vac stood alone in the docking bay, surrounded by the machinery of galactic civilization, and felt something he hadn't felt in 93 cycles. Hoping. Not the desperate hope of a dying ship. Something stronger, something that spread through the station, through the Council chamber, through every species, that had watched humans move when no one else would. The galaxy would never be the same. And somehow, impossibly, that felt right. 6 months later, T-Vac stood on the bridge of a new ship. The Vasquez promise carried the same designation as its predecessor, but everything else had changed, faster. Engines, redundant systems, a crew. Trained not in council protocol, but in human-inspired emergency response. Chief Engineer Essers approached with a data slate. The Hisseth Collective is reporting a freighter in distress, ion. Storm damage, life support failing. TVAC didn't hesitate, set course. Council authorization. We don't need permission to save lives. Essers smiled, a rare expression on her scaled face, just checking. The Vesh's promise turned toward the distress signal. Behind them the council station grew small. Ahead the darkness stretched infinite. TVAC thought about Vasquez, about the last response, about the human who had shown his people what courage looked like. He thought about the galaxy they were building, not through treaties or protocols or carefully negotiated agreements, through action, through the simple refusal to look away. Distress signal acquired, a crew member announced. The Hisseth freighter is broadcasting on all channels, no other vessels have responded. Of course not. TVAC settled into his command chair. They're waiting for authorization. And we're not. No, he looked at the view screen, at the stars, at the darkness, at the silent ship somewhere out there waiting for help. We're not. The Vesh's promise accelerated. Behind them, the Council's emergency response mandate had already saved 37 ships, new protocols, new procedures, a new way of operating that acknowledged what humans had proven. Waiting wasn't the same as helping. But across the galaxy, other species were learning. The Verdant had launched their own response fleet. The Hisseth had modified their emergency channels. Even the Throne worlds had begun training crews for rapid intervention. Humans had shown them the way. And TVAC had seen the truth that frightened the Council most. Compassion was contagious. Chief Engineer Essers pointed at the long-range sensors. Another contact heading toward the Hisseth freighter. Faster than us. TVAC leaned forward, the sensor ghost resolved into a familiar silhouette. Blocky, inefficient, unmistakable. The last response. Open a channel, he said. Vasquez's face appeared on the display. She looked older, tired, but her eyes held the same focus he remembered. Chief Engineer, she said, fancy meeting you here. We heard the distress call. So did we. Vasquez glanced at something off-screen. Looks like we have the same destination. TVAC felt something shift in his chest. Not competition, something else. We can coordinate, he said. Your crew takes engineering, mine handles evacuation. You trust us. You taught us to. Vasquez was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. Race you there. The channel closed. The last response surged forward. TVAC smiled, a human gesture he'd adopted without realizing. Full power, he ordered. Let's show them what we learned. The Vesh's promise roared after the human ship, two vessels cutting through darkness toward a cry for help. And somewhere in the depth of space, the Hisseth freighter's crew watched their sensors and wept. Because two ships were coming. Not one, not after Council approval, not after proper procedure. Two ships from two species moving as fast as physics would allow. Humanity had started something, a ripple. That became a wave, a choice that became a movement. Compassion, once witnessed, became impossible to ignore. The galaxy was learning. And TVAC, former chief engineer of a Dying ship, now commander of a vessel. Built on a new philosophy, watched the stars blur past and understood. They weren't just rescuing strangers. They were becoming something new. Something dangerous. Something the Council had never anticipated. They were becoming like humans. And that, more than any weapon or war, would change everything. The Vesh's promise raced toward the distress signal. Behind it, the last response match. Course. And ahead in the darkness, someone waited for help that would finally arrive. No one responded to their distress call. For months, then a human ship appeared. And the galaxy would never be silent again.